Hello everyone, welcome. My name is Wilhelm Toivonen and this is my results presentation for my master's thesis. My thesis topic is determining user preference profiles from email and user engagement data. I did my master's thesis to Vibemetrics, a Finnish company specializing in staff surveys. My instructor was Mikko Ruokojoki from Vibemetrics, and my supervisor was Professor Jung. Here's the agenda for this presentation. First, I'll briefly introduce the topic and its research questions. Then, I'll go into the background and talk about the Vibemetrics platform in addition to the chosen customer. Then I'll briefly mention some related work that grounds the research we conducted into the existing studies. Then I'll discuss the experiment design with the chosen methodology. Then we get to the interesting part, which is the results. I'll present the results by research questions. Finally, we'll discuss the limitations of the study and conclude with a conclusion. Right, let's start. The current work life is changing at an unprecedented pace, and the need for organizations to adapt and learn from their employees is more critical than ever. A key method for gauging this employee satisfaction is staff surveys, which provide a snapshot to the organizational health and employee engagement. However, traditional methods of conducting staff surveys can be quite time-consuming, and the actions taken based on the results are often delayed, missing, or incomplete. Vibemetrics seeks to modernize this process by providing immediate access to survey data, allowing users to immediately explore their results and act on their feedback. To maximize this and drive the desired organizational development, the platform must be engaging, and the communication must be such that users are motivated to view their results immediately once they are available. This is the goal of the study, in a broader sense. To guide our research towards this goal, we formulated 4 research questions. Before we get into the research questions, we need to define what are user attributes, because this is going to be included in a lot of the 4 research questions. User attributes are properties saved for each user, such as gender, age, how long have they worked at this company, and their task. In addition, we also included some that are not directly saved to users as user attributes, but can be inferred from the users, such as how many subordinates they have, and thus are they a manager or not. We will use all these in the study. Now, back to the research questions. So the first one is, how do user attributes influence preferences for different results formats on the Vibemetrics platform? That's a mouthful, but basically it means that what kind of users prefer charts and what kind of users prefer tables. Our hypothesis was that managers might prefer tables, as they might want to see more detailed results. This might also be true in some job titles that are more analytical. For example, our hypothesis also stated that users with more data, such as people with a longer history in that company that has answered to a lot of these surveys, might prefer charts to get a better overview of their results. The second research question we defined is, how does adding textual survey results impact user engagement on the Vibemetrics platform? Our hypothesis for this research question was that the addition of these textual insights would increase engagement in general, and that users would generally perform shorter insights, but spend more time on the page with longer insights. The third research question we defined is, how do personalized action recommendations following a study affect user engagement on the Vibemetrics platform? Our hypothesis was that the addition of these action recommendations would increase user engagement, and that users would prefer action recommendations that are actionable. Now, this is an important research question because this directly ties with our goal to make the product more actionable, to drive the desired organizational development. The fourth and final research question we defined had to do with email communication. How does the personalization of email communications affect click-through rates among users of the Vibemetrics platform? Our hypothesis was that the addition of personalized content within the emails would increase click-through rates throughout all user groupings. If the users find the emails more interesting, we've thought that it incites them to click the link in the email. Alright, then let's discuss the platform, Vibemetrics. Vibemetrics is a Finnish company focusing on conducting and analyzing staff surveys. It serves over 100,000 employees from multiple companies. It supports multiple different survey types. Pulse, which are short surveys conducted often, for example monthly. Employee satisfaction surveys, which are often large but conducted maybe once a year or twice a year. And exit surveys, which survey users on why they leave. The surveys are customizable by the customer organizations, and the questions asked can support answers that are numerical, categorical, or free-form text. The results are generated once the survey concludes and are visible to all users that answered. The results include tables, charts, and textual insights. Short, interesting facts about the user's responses. Now, an important part of the platform is that all the answers, or let's say results, are anonymized, meaning that all results are filtered in a way that ensures no single user's answer can be inferred or calculated. Right, chosen customer. The chosen customer for the study is a Finnish organization mainly specializing in healthcare. It has approximately 9,000 users using the Vibemetrics platform and conducts monthly pulse surveys consisting of 6 standard questions each. Perfect. Then, related work. To make this presentation more compact, the related work section is unfortunately skipped. Detailed walkthrough of the related literature to all research questions can be read in my thesis. The related work section in my thesis outlines the lack of relevant literature around staff surveys, specifically studying how the user engagement affects organizational development. It also goes through some basic concepts that are required in this thesis. For example, what is personalization? And in other fields, how does adding personalization affect, let's say, engagement? Experiment. So first and foremost, the experiment consisted of 2 main data points to which based our comparison. The control measurement in June and the intervention measurement in July. We didn't change the survey process itself because it was not included in this study. We only changed and studied the results page and communication. Specifically, we analyzed the personal results page. Now, notice that the Vibemetrics platform also has multiple other pages. For example, you can view the results and the history of your user group, which is basically your closest coworkers. Also, if you have subordinates, you can see results and the history of them. But for simplicity, we just looked at the personal results page. Now, let's discuss the changes made to the personal results page and the email communication. Here's an image of the results screen, or page, as it was during and before the June control measurement. It had an info card at the top, and then these question cards, like the one seen in the picture, stacked on top of each other. Each card compared the given user's answers to their group's and organization's average answers. But especially with surveys spanning loads of questions, this page was really long. We wanted to modify this results page so that it would provide the same or even more information to the users with a shorter page. Here we have the first version of the updated page. This page is the table version of the page and includes two cards. The first one, on the left, is the trend and history of the user's own answers. And the second one on the right is used for comparing their answers to their groups and organizations' average answers. Note that the card on the right displays the same information as the previous page did, but in a much more compact manner. This change was used to give an answer to the first research question. Here we have a similar page with charts for tables. The information in these charts are identical to the ones found on the previous slide on tables in just a chart format. On the left we have the trend and history, and on the right we have the comparison. Right, here we have two versions of the newly created insight cards. One of these cards was placed on top of the table or chart cards, so right below the info card. The insights of which these cards got their data from is the same, only the brevity between them changed. The long version, shown on the left, contains more insights than the short version, shown on the right. The one on the left groups these insights by question. The one on the right doesn't, but it aims to highlight the question by bolding. In these two cards, we can also see the generated action recommendations. The action recommendations were placed right below the insights, and they also contain two versions. The simple version was generated by calling a large language model once, with almost all the data that we had from the user. So it contained all the insights, so these textual important result segments, and also their history. The complex version was generated by first generating the simple version, then by calling the same LLM, critiquing it, and finally regenerating it from the simple version and the critique. This complex version was expected to produce more actionable action recommendations and in turn drive more change than the simple version. These insights were used to answer the second research question, whereas the action recommendations was used to answer the third research question. Both the results and insight presentations was made to be toggleable by the users. And what I mean by toggleable is that we created filters for switching between chart or table and between detailed and summarized insight cards. This was done to facilitate A/B testing between these combinations. This image here illustrates the filter options displayed to the users on July. Notice that there isn't a filter for the action recommendation types. This is because the two action recommendation types were not made to be toggleable. So the differences between these was analyzed only based on changes in the user engagement metrics. We chose to do this because we thought that we don't want to create additional complexity, and the results page already had 5 filters, as shown in the picture. To get additional data into what combinations the users preferred in the results page, we also implemented so-called quick asks. These were short survey questions given to all users viewing the personal results page. These questions included different text depending on which page the user was currently viewing. At the top of the screen, we see a general question which is translated to English as, "Do you find the new results page clear?" This was given to all users viewing the results page the first time. At the bottom, we see a comparison quick ask, which is translated to English as, "Do you prefer this table representation over the previously seen chart presentation?" This was asked from all users viewing the table results who had previously seen the chart result page. As you can see from the picture, but they are unfortunately in Finnish, is that the survey question posed 3 answers. One is yes, one is no, and one is I don't want to answer, so skip. These answers were saved and used in the further analysis. Right, email communication. So here we have the control email that was sent to all users who answered in the control measurement in June. This email was sent 3 days later after answering to the survey had finished and acted as a reminder to view the user's personal results. In July, we had 3 different types of emails, of which one was the control email. In July, we sent a third of the users this, and 2/3 one of these. So these were the intervention emails. On the left, we have an email with the generated action recommendations also included in the email. Notice that previously we talked about the 2 different types of action recommendations. All the types included in the email communication was the simple types. So the ones generated by only calling the language model once. On the right, we have an email with the user's most interesting insight also included in the email. And this is formatted similarly as the short version of the insights that were on the results page. We studied the impact that the addition of these personalized content had on the click-through rate. Right, this is all the changes made to the Vibemetrics platform. So next, let's discuss on how we studied the impact and these changes and how it affected user engagement and email click-through rate. Methodology. First of all, let's discuss how we collected the data. So for user interactions, we used a tool called Matomo, which is similar to Google Analytics, but by using our own infrastructure, it's more centered around user privacy. In addition to the user interactions, we also scored the results page by the quick ask answers, which were defined in a previous slide. Combinations of these, so quick ask answers and the filters at each action, and action metrics, such as average time spent, average visits, average actions per visit were used to create combined metrics, as seen in the screen next to metrics. These metrics represented a score normalized between 0 and 1. To what extent did the user find that particular results page engaging? So for example, a high table score would mean that the user engaged with a page showing table results a lot. For the emails, we tracked the CTR, click-through rate, which was the portion of users that clicked on the email from the users that was sent an email. The email was sent to all users who answered to the survey. We tracked these emails that were clicked by an embedded tracking token in the link. So the data was pre-processed to reduce the effect of outliers. We set the action time to 0 for actions with no action time defined. For example, if we for some reason had a quick ask answer to a user which in our dataset was not at that time viewing any page. In addition, we also clamped the maximum time per action to 10 minutes. This was done to reduce the effect of outliers, because we figured and calculated that the page did not contain enough material, enough data to view over 10 minutes. In addition, to facilitate the correlation analysis, we one-hot encoded all the categorical variables. These are, for example, the task category. For analysis techniques, we did 3 things. First, we performed user grouping. We generated all possible user groupings, filtered out the groupings that were redundant or too small in size, and compared the average metrics amongst them, for example, engagement score or email CTR. The second thing we did was correlation analysis. We calculated the zero-shot correlations between all user attributes, some of which are these categorical one-hot encoded variables, and all the metrics. Finally, we also did predictive modeling using 4 different kinds of machine learning models: linear regression, polynomial regression, random forest, and neural networks, and evaluated these with a multitude of evaluation metrics. Results. So first I wanted to show you the general time spent results, because I wanted to show what, for example, the added clamping resulted. So here we have some histograms. On the left is the data from June, on the right is the data from July, and the y-axis contains the frequency of the bins, so the frequency of that time expenditure. So we can see that during both months we have a clear spike at the clamped 600-second mark. We didn't do anything to prevent this, but I wanted to show that this might have affected some results. Here we have the user engagement scores. So on the left we have the engagement score calculated from the June data, and on the right we have the engagement scores, all of them, calculated from July. Notice that they are fairly similar in shape, except for the 2 comparison scores defined right there. This is likely because we had only a small number of users that viewed both table and chart screens, for example, or short and long screens, which means that we don't have a lot of users for which they are close, the 2 scores, which means that the difference for the 2 scores is unlikely to be 0. Right. these are the general changes we had in engagement. It's the last slide before we go into the specific research question charts. But here we can see that I just chose the comparison between genders because it showed the most clear kind of results. So the average time spent per action, which is the top left chart, showed a decrease in average time for women and increase for men. Whereas the average visits and average actions per visit showed an increase in all the genders. So, in general, we saw larger interaction metrics on average in July than June, but we saw a significantly smaller sample size in July because, well, you can see the sample sizes on the screen. This was caused by the summer vacation period, the major vacation period in Finland. Everyone is on vacation. Right, then let's go by research question. So first research question was, how do user attributes influence preferences for different results format on the Vibemetrics platform? Here we have the groupings, and the groupings clearly illustrate that there are some user groups that clearly prefer tables and some that clearly prefer charts. But you can see that among the best or the worst, we can really see no connecting features. So that's why we did the correlation analysis, which showed this. And interestingly, nearly all of the most and least correlated features are task categories, which we chose not to include in our final discussions or conclusions because of their small sample sizes. Also, none of these task categories actually showed correlations that were statistically significant. These are the results for the machine learning models. And what we can see is that none of the machine learning models worked. All of them showed negative R-squared values, indicating that their predictive performance is negligible. So, what are the final results? The key findings is that we found no correlation between preferences and user attributes. We only found minor preferences, for example in the groupings, but none of them were statistically significant. Then, linear and polynomial regression models failed significantly, but also the two others, random forest and neural networks, were ineffective and had negative R-squared scores. In conclusion, the user preferences are complex and likely driven by unobservable factors such as emotional or behavioral factors. Now, the second one. How does adding textual survey results impact user engagement on the Vibemetrics platform? Here are similar groupings. So, again, we have groupings with significant preference towards short and significant preference towards long insights. But, viewing the correlations, it tells the same story. So we only see, besides one, task categories. And similarly, none of these task categories were statistically significant. Also, similarly, if we try to model these with machine learning models to predict to which users should we give which insight types, the models failed. The key findings here are that no correlations between user attributes and insights was found. The machine learning models used also failed to find patterns, all of them having negative R-squared scores. We also found no evidence that adding insights increases user engagement in general. Despite these findings, Vibemetrics will continue serving insights due to other positive feedback gathered from users outside this survey. The third one. How do personalized action recommendations following a survey affect user engagement on the Vibemetrics platform? Here we have some charts comparing the general user engagement metrics, such as average action time, average actions per visit, and average visits for each 3 action recommendation types. Now, you notice that the simple and complex, so done once, and then the ones that are critiqued, show really negligible differences. The ones that show differences are the bars indicating no recommendation. The interesting thing is that actually we didn't have a subset of users to whom we didn't create action recommendations, but these correspond to users who we couldn't create action recommendations to. For example, users that did not answer, or users that did not have any highly positive or highly negative results, indicating that they didn't have insights generated for them. So, what can we conclude about this research question? We found no strong relationship between the 2 defined action recommendation types and higher engagement scores. The simple action recommendations actually performed slightly better than the complex ones. So, the simple recommendations are easier to create and more cost effective, which is why they should be created in the future. Vibemetrics will continue offering these simple action recommendations as it directly relates to the organizational development, which is the broader goal of the Vibemetrics platform. Now, the 4th research question, which was as follows: how does the personalization of email communication affect click-through rates among users on the Vibemetrics platform? Here we have the top and bottom click-through rates by the change of the average click-through rate from June to July. So, meaning that the high click-through rate, so with a high change, they saw a lot of users who didn't click the email in June but did click the email in July. Similarly to the others, we see no connecting factors among the best or the worst groups, which is why we did a correlation analysis. Now, this correlation analysis is actually done just by the click-through or clicked column in July. So this is not the change, this is whether they clicked on July. Now, the interesting thing is that the most correlating feature is user insight type nothing, which is the base email sent to users without any personalized content. This was also found to be statistically significant. The second worst correlating feature was user insight type summary, which was found to highly affect negatively the click-through rate of the users that got the summary email. Now, the summary email here is the email to whom we have added the generated action recommendation to. Here are the machine learning models where we try to predict the click-through rate given a certain email with this insight type. And here also we found that they struggled. We didn't find significant F1 or ROC AUC scores. And actually the better ones seem to always predict that the best click-through rate is achieved by this control email. So, what are the conclusions for this research question? Well, they are the following. Personalized emails showed lower click-through rates, directly contradicting with our hypothesis. Possible reasons for this is that either users prefer shorter emails with no additional content, or that the additional content was not engaging, or even that the users already grasped some of their results in the email and did not feel the need to view the results further. So, to conclude, email personalization, as we implemented it, did not enhance the click-through rate. Right. Then on to some limitations. So we faced technical issues. We had an email delivery bug where we sent emails in July with actually highly incorrect formatting. We had some tracking inaccuracies, which caused the average action times to be larger, but the average actions per visit to be smaller. In addition to these technical issues, we had a systematic error because we had a significantly smaller response rate during July, caused by the Finnish holiday period. Also, we were only limited to user attributes. In addition, because we only used this one organization with a lot of task categories, the sample sizes in them were small, reducing the statistical power. So in future, we should collect more comprehensive and reliable data, explore additional user attributes and behavioral metrics, such as how has the user interacted with different kinds of emails and results pages in the past, or how has these users answered to the survey questions, have they commented on survey questions, etc. In addition, we in the future should implement refined personalization strategies. So for example, maybe we could try and completely remodel the email, not just increase the length of it by injecting personalized content. And finally, probably the most important thing is, in future we should conduct studies outside holiday periods or over holiday periods to ensure consistent engagement. Yeah, conclusion. So the user preferences are complex, and whether it is for the result or the insight type, they were not predictable through user attributes. Additionally, we found that the type of personalized content we sent in the emails did not enhance user engagement. But the development we did drives the larger goal of a staff survey platform, which is to incite organizational change. Therefore, Vibemetrics will keep serving and developing these insights and action recommendations developed in this study to its users. Thank you for listening and hopefully enjoyed. Bye bye.